Ashley Rivera is a 19-year industry veteran. She's a former hairstylist and now she's a sales specialist and podcast host with Tippy. Today, we're going to hear all about the pros and cons of claiming tips. We're going to debate on whether or not you should be putting in the bank, why or why not, and we're going to learn about this thing called a tip credit, and we're going to learn a little bit about like how Tippy can help us in our business. Welcome back to the Hairdresser Strong Show. My name is Robert Hughes, and I am your host. And today I'm with Ashley Rivera. How you doing today, Ashley?
Hi, I'm so happy to be here.
Thank you for taking the time. Just to give the audience some context, I met Ashley at Artist Palette Beauty Expo, and she was a vendor. You were a vendor there representing Tippy, and I walked up to the booth and I asked you a little bit about what is Tippy and what do they do, and we engaged in this whole conversation about how to think about tips and I don't think the conversation's had enough, not at least as a standalone conversation. It's usually part of a conversation. So I'm very excited and looking forward to this because I know that to me, this is huge. Like I try to talk to people about this topic, about their tips, and people like seem to have made up their mind on how they feel about it. So maybe we can give people some information, education, and help people make the best decisions they possibly can. So let's start off with you're a former hairdresser. You still have your license. Tell us like your high level like overview of what's your story, how'd you get to where you are, like where you're at now.
Yeah, awesome. Well, yeah, 19 years in the industry, and I love this industry so much. I was at my previous job, a 7 location salon and spa, for 18 of those years. So I grew up a lot in that company and learned a lot. I've met so many people. That's truly why I'm with Tippy today. For the first 11 years, I was behind the chair. So I come from the place where I know I have that experience. I get what it's like to be behind the chair and operate in a salon. And then I recruited for about 8 years for all 7 locations, all positions, and I got to dive really deep into schools. And with Tippy, now that I have all of that experience and I'm pouring that into Tippy now, and it's been truly amazing.
Okay, cool, awesome. So it's a hardware and software potentially for managing tips in the salon or shop,
Yeah.
and so we can learn a little bit more about it about Tippy a little later, but let's just dive in. You working in that space, you clearly would be what I would consider at least a subject matter expert, as what they say. So let's first start off with tips. So, like, one, I guess actually I didn't mention this before we talked, but like, what is your position on no tip movement?
Mm, I I don't love that. I mean, we got so let's just kind of like dive into what that means. I mean, we got into this industry because we get to walk in the door every day and make as much money as we want, right? And like the sky's the limit. And it's just that extra piece of the layer that connects you and that client together. It really is. It's the thank you, it's the gratitude. It's so much more than just money. And it's been a part of our industry for so long. I just can't imagine being without it.
Yeah, I was one of my buddies who's a salon owner. I'm pulling it up right now. He sent me a screenshot and a link to an article, and it was on it wasn't an article, it was this he took a picture of it's msn.com, so mainstream news, and the title of the talk was find out how you're wasting money on tips that should never be expected. This is really a hot topic because the COVID, everyone was so generous and tipping everybody, even at the checkout line at grocery stores, and so now everybody's like kind of burnout and like from tips and kind of annoyed. And but I will say, like, this message, this art thing he sent me, it did talk about a bunch of different stuff, and then they got down to hair, and they have a picture of a barber, and it says no tip for the barber who only buzzes your hair. And they say a 2 minute buzz cut is not the same as a full-on hair experience. They have barely broken a sweat or haven't even bothered to chit chat. So
Mm,
you're off the hook. Let's be honest. The Clippers did most of the work. Toss them a thanks. So I don't believe with the sense. I don't agree with the sentiment. I think it's pretty cold, and I think that that's a little bit of the conversation around tips from customers. But they did say if we don't talk to our customers and provide them a good experience, then they shouldn't tip us. And I guess I would not disagree with that. So, I mean,
yeah.
ultimately, I think at the end of the day, hairdressers, at least hairdressers, I mean, I would like let a barber speak for themselves. But as a hairstylist, I feel like my tips are safe. And so, why would I ever say you don't have to tip me? I mean,
Right.
40 if you make 50%, somewhere around close to 40% of your income is tips. So, like, getting rid of
Mm.
your tips is like walking away from 40% of your income. It's crazy, insane.
Yeah, absolutely. I can't agree with you more. And
Yeah.
I think to your point, I think yes, there 2020 kind of had this like piece of everybody wanted the piece of something, right? And even going to get coffee in the drive-through, we're asked to tip. We're not in the game of nonsense, we're just not. We're here because this has been for years, decades of this is the norm in our industry, right? So we're here to elevate that and just kind of help that along and become even better. So yeah.
Yeah, and there is a piece to this conversation that I feel like it's a safe space to bring up an observation. It's like a macro observation, like it's not specific to this conversation. It's kind of like across the board. It does seem like, social media is so heavily influential on the way people view the world. I mean, we saw with the election, the polarization, it got really intense, and if we didn't have social media, would it have been as intense? I say no, it wouldn't. Like, and I stand by that. Like, we can have that debate all day, but I do think that echo chambers created by algorithms serve us the information we want to see and like tell us what we want to hear. Uh,
Mhm.
that's one piece of it. But the other piece of it is if there's a narrative going around, we're all being heavily influenced by that narrative. And then maybe we think that we need to act on it. And if there's like an anti tipping narrative going around, and then like maybe somebody who's like a social media power user, they can't get away from this conversation. So maybe it makes sense to them. And I'm here to say, get out of your echo chamber and take that money. Like, what are you doing?
Sure.
Like, that's crazy.
Sure. Or like,
Oh,
hey,
anyway,
get
sorry.
get
I
back
was my
into work. Yeah, and get back into work and give these people the best experience they've ever had. They can go see anyone. Really. I mean, they can go down the street, see anyone, but what makes you different? And that's the piece you got to stay with.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Well, and I have to put a disclaimer on here because there are a number of folks and a whole conversation piece about figuring out what you charge. And we're not talking about how you charge right now, but it kind of is very much backing up against it. But how you charge, like the argument against tips is there's multiple arguments, but one of the arguments against tips is people, they don't want the customer deciding if they're worth it or not. And
Mm,
the response that I like, that I think is the best to that is, well, then charge what you want to make and then take the extra money. Like, you
right.
still don't get rid of tips. Like,
Sure.
it's just like the logic it defies
Yeah.
logic. Okay, I'm on a
Sure.
soapbox. I'm gonna
Sure.
digress here. Um, okay,
I
so
agree with you. I
pros
like
and cons of claiming tips. So, like, okay, we've had the conversation about tips. If you don't want to take tips, then you could just turn this conversation off and go and wait for next week next week's episode. But if you're currently accepting tips, or maybe you're wondering, maybe I should be accepting tips, we shall continue. All right. Claiming tips. So once we get the tips, obviously, if we use a system like Tippy or some sort of system where there's creating like a paper trail, then you're claiming the tips already. And if you're using some sort of electronic form of tipping and you're not claiming it, and I think you're insane, unless the government does make good. Do you know any have you heard anything on the government on the
I
promise
haven't
of
heard yeah, no, I haven't heard anything yet, but it would be sort of amazing.
yeah, like, if we didn't have to claim our tips anymore, based on, like, the government said so? But in the meantime, claiming your
Mhm.
tips, what pros and cons?
Yeah.
Tell 'em to
Well,
me.
let's go back to 2020. I think that was a huge eye opener, right? Like we were shut down, we were out of work, and as hairstylists, I don't or beauty professional in our industry, I don't know if we've ever been in any sort of situation where we've had to plan ahead and be prepared for something like this. Of course, everyone tells us to and things like that, but this was knock you on on your ground, and a huge eye opener when you go and you are out of work to claim unemployment. um, Unfortunately, people saw so much less. And it was a shame because you're worth so much. You work so hard. And that again is another layer of what you do every day. And that just was a huge eye opener. That was a big year for a lot of people to really take charge and say, you know what, that we're not doing this anymore. We're better than that, and really level up and start doing it the right way.
Yeah, and that's interesting. So, if you're stylist or a barber who work W-2 commission, I feel like that message was for you for sure. And I guess like anybody who so okay, that is one thing. So it helps ensure that when you file for unemployment, if you're a W-2 employee,
Yep.
that you get the max, because I think there's a max on unemployment usually, but you can push up the amount of money that you make by claiming your tips. I didn't even think about that. That's good. Okay, so how about you got anything else for us? So
Yeah.
unemployment. What's next?
Yeah, well, that's one layer, but
Yeah.
another piece is planning for your future, investments, investing in yourself. I we started going into schools, and because I had that experience of going in and recruiting at schools, it starts there. It starts at that beginning stage of knowing when you're going into the interview what to ask. How are you claiming tips? How are you going to support my financial future? And that is a huge piece. And I love that we're able to give them that element and that layer of it. And I think it's really important so they can go and buy a house or invest in something and start building a foundation for themselves, a solid
Can
foundation.
can you open that up? I One of the people that I listen to on a podcast, he likes to say double click that. Can we double click that on that and open that
Yeah.
up? So what do you mean? Like, why is claiming tips have anything to do with buying a house?
Great, because when you go and you say, I need to buy this piece of property, or I need a loan for this, you have to show proof of income. And how are you going to do that? You're going to do it because you have proof of income and you're claiming it. It's there. The data is there. You can't unfortunately go in and say, here's $5,000 in cash, and that's
Right.
just not the way it works. So unfortunately, we need to start really advocating for ourselves and saying like that this is really important to me.
Yeah, the important piece here is DTI, or debt to income ratio. If you calculate your monthly income and then take away 51%, I think is the H. Someone said it was higher, but let's just say 50% just to be conservative. So take half of what you make for your monthly income, subtract the amount you pay in any credit card debt or loans or student debt, and then that number you have left over is your buying power. And so like with that buying power, you can increase that buying power by claiming your tips. So every dollar that you claim, you can use 50 cents of every dollar that you claim towards buying property or acquiring assets, or buying a car. I mean, a car, we don't talk about buying cars here because
No, I was just
cars are
gonna
not
say,
investments unless you're like a collector, and even then there's a high risk. This is not financial advice, but I would never look at a car as an investment. Anyway, okay, so like your borrowing power is directly connected to your income, and your income is impacted by what you can prove because before 2008, before Dodd-Frank Act, you could say whatever you wanted. You could walk in and be like, "I'm a
Yeah.
millionaire." It's like, "I give me a loan and I got no money though."
Oh, and that got us so far.
Yeah, exactly. It caused their kind of
Yeah.
whole world to collapse.
Yeah,
Yeah.
for sure. Yeah. No, yep, absolutely.
Okay, so we got unemployment is higher because you're proving income, and then unemployment is based on your income. Um, oh, there's another one. I wonder if what you're gonna say next. But anyway, the second one is your debt to income ratio, your borrowing power. Any other reasons why we should be claiming tips?
Look, we're not here. Like, I think we all can say, like, we don't want anyone to feel like they have to do something or, something that they don't want to do within their business. But the thing is this has always been a thing. It's been a scarce thing. It's been a fear. What do I do with this income? And I think it really is cut and dry. Especially if you go on the website, it's right there for you. And to make it easy, to have the tools to make it easy is important. So we want ease for salon owners, for employees, for everyone that's in this. And to make it easier to bring these tools in for your company, I think it helps you, it continues to grow you, and it also helps your employees too.
So the thing that comes to my mind is Social Security. When you retire,
Mhm. Yeah.
if
Yeah.
you claim, I mean, if
Sure.
my math is anywhere close to right, then that's a significant more
Sure.
money that you will be able to get a
Mhm.
percentage of. That's if you believe that
Mhm.
Social Security will be around later on. I don't know about that, but those are the three areas that I can think
Yeah.
of: is your unemployment because that's income based, your borrowing power that's income based, and your retirement from the government because that's income based as well. Um, what are the cons of not claiming your tips? Let's talk about the downside
The cons. Oh
that we
gosh.
have not mentioned.
Well, you could get audited. So I think there's definitely pros and cons to everything, right? So when you're looking at bringing something into your business or doing a different practice or doing something different, you certainly want to start there. But again, I'll go back to, it's very cut and dry. It is what it is. There's no one's changing that. So I think the best way you can save money in other ways would be something that you would want to look at and continue to do at claiming them, because what's going to happen is you're going to get audited, or the stylist may be claiming them. You don't know that, and your numbers are off and it doesn't match. So when that happens, it kind of puts a red flag there, and that's kind of starts why you would be audited.
Okay. So now, I would, I'm going to shift over to the salon owner because you were definitely just talking to the salon owner right
Yes,
there.
1000%.
That was definitely for the salon owner. But real quick, the person who is not claiming their tips, the risk of an audit, can you just tell us what that is? What is that risk? Like, what is the downside of getting audited and and IRS discovering that you were not claiming income?
Well, you're gonna have to owe money. You're gonna have to owe a lot of money. And it's so sad when that happens, because it becomes thousands. It can become thousands. And it's when it happens, it's just like, oh no, they weren't educated enough, and they didn't have the tools. And it can be really detrimental. It's kind of like a experience I don't wish upon anybody.
Yeah, totally. And then the piece about the that you just mentioned was a piece that I'm not really familiar with myself. Um, so if you're a salon or shop owner, you have W-2 employees, and they're not claiming the tips, and you're not asking them, because I had the last salon I was a W-2 employee at, they would give you this form every month, I think, and you were supposed to fill it out. But I don't know what the repercussions are if I didn't fill it out with them, but then I claimed it on my income. So you were just alluding to what happens if, as a business owner, a salon owner, or a W-2 employee, tip owner that has tip-based employees or whatever. I don't want to use legal terms here, but yeah, the salon owner that's watching, the shop owner that's watching, that has a W-2. Can you explain what you were just talking about? Because I don't think I understand the nuances.
Yeah, sure. I mean, I think you mean if I was a stylist and I was bringing that to my accountant, it just everything goes back to the business, right? The business that you work at, and everything should match, right? When I bring my W-2 at the end of the year, and I go to my accountant and I claim my taxes, my income should match what my owner is saying what my income is. If it doesn't, then I think it just starts this, okay, well, it starts like a red flag, and then they kind of start to look into why that would be.
So
And
there's a risk for the business owner
yes.
if their employees aren't claiming their tips. So, like, what is the burden on the business owner? Like, is it the business owner's responsibility? Like, are they liable? Like, can you speak to that?
Sure. Yeah, it literally says it on the IRS website. We honestly don't get involved with any of that, um but
What does it say?
we just support. You're supposed to claim them on the payroll. So
Okay, so
basically,
it is the business's
yeah,
responsibility to
it's
make sure that
income.
they're
Mhm,
calculating tips.
sure.
Yeah, that's news. That's so crazy that someone told me that like maybe 2 years ago, and I was like, that's ridiculous. I've never heard that before.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, basically, what it is just recording that extra layer. You're just recording what that was, whether it was cash or whether it was through our system or through your POS system. You still just have that lined item.
That is crazy because it's like I don't see how it's the business owner's business if my customer slides me a 20. I think that's my business, you know.
Well, I mean, we can talk about the the turning our heads to some things, right? That's all
Yeah, but
right.
not if I'm the shop owner and it's
No.
and I'm gonna get in trouble, then I need to be all up in my people's business,
I'm not
right?
trying to scare anyone, but that just happens. I
I
don't.
mean, fear is a very good motivator, you know.
Yeah. Sure,
Okay,
yeah.
let's go back. Let's go to something. So on this conversation, there was this thing called a some sort of tip credit. Salon restaurants have it. Could you explain what it is and the process that we were in and the current status?
Yes. So you could, if you were claiming the just on payroll, the tip was going on the check, and you could at the end of the year get a credit for doing that, and basically being reimbursed on that piece. We, as the industry, beauty industry, were trying to do the same thing, and we were definitely getting somewhere. But ultimately, I mean, really took it far, and ultimately we're told like this isn't going to happen. So it's frustrating. I feel like a lot of things in our industry get kind of pushed to the side a little bit, but it's because people have a passion or have a purpose about it, and they want to continue this push and continue elevating our industry. So I think if you have that want and that need, you need to get out there and start advocating for it. But yeah, I mean, if it's happening in other industries, I think that it should absolutely happen with ours.
So would that require an act of Congress, or can the IRS regulator do that?
I don't know that question, but I
Okay.
believe that it would be at like a federal level. Mhm.
Yeah. Interesting. Well, I know the PBA was working on it,
Yes,
and I have the page pulled up right here,
that's right.
and
And
yeah. So yeah, so it's like, right now I'm working with the PBA, or at least helping them and meet people, and we were able to set up a meeting with this with city council, my council member here in DC, to talk about the compact license, which is an initiative they're working on, and they were also working on this tax tip fairness thing where we would have the same credit as the salons, and I'm really sad to hear that it's not working, and I guess it goes to show that business owners out there, if you're like, if you want this, then you definitely need to tell your representative. Unfortunately, the there's I don't know how much energy is behind trying to get this done now, considering that we're being told that it won't happen. But just another kind of reminder that being actively engaged in your local, state, and federal politics is important for your business. If you're in business and you're ignoring what's happening, then you're not doing business right. That's here to hear right here. Sorry to say, hot take. Anyway, so moving on. So we talked about, oh, okay. So like claiming your tips, does that mean putting them in the bank? And like, why would you put them in the bank, or why would you not put them in the bank?
oh gosh. I think you have a good perspective on this. I know that we talked about it before, but taking a piece and investing it into something that can be better, or make you more money and be more proactive in that space. I mean, I couldn't agree with you more, but I do think there could be more education behind it. So um I think people are a little nervous about it just because they just don't know much about it. And I think, getting involved in more talks like that is super important. I myself am a little like, I know some about it, and of course like my husband's very involved in that, but there's a piece of me that wants to know more about that as well. But I do think it's important for people to know that it is a huge chunk of your income. So if you can make it grow for you and work for you, then that is where you should be focusing on for sure.
Yeah, and I mean, even I guess as like this is all being talked about, the thought that comes to my head is the reason why we have bank accounts is, if you keep all your money in your mattress and your house burns down,
Yeah,
that kind of thing, you lose all your money.
that's true. Yeah, absolutely.
So
Like
it's just
cash.
safer.
Yeah, and again, cash goes back to like it only takes you so far.
Mhm.
It just there has to be some sort of like trail and reason and meaning behind it. Yeah.
Yeah, and in the assets, based on my research and my studies, the assets that tend to help people gain wealth are owning stocks and real estate. I mean, those are the two most common wealth builders, and you can't buy either with cash. I mean, in theory, you could buy a house with cash, but that's like if that's un that sounds like a huge risk, like, because that's all public data, like, if you
Yeah.
buy that with unclaimed money and you get audited, then you're gonna look like a criminal. Like, people are gonna think you're gonna drug dealer or trafficker or something like that, so, I don't know. If anybody is listening or watching that has bought their house with unclaimed cash, I'd love to hear from you. You probably will not tell me who you are, but I would love to have that debate if somebody out there wants to have that one. Do you have a take on that?
Uh, no, but I would love to hear the story.
Yeah, really. Okay, cool. Well, I mean, I think this is good. It was all things tips and a couple of hot takes and some education, and I think this is good. So, bottom line is, it sounds like if you want to change your life, then you should claim your income so that you can have the opportunity to do with it what folks do who build wealth.
Yeah.
That was yeah.
Yeah.
I said that without giving advice. Financial advice is like tricky. You got to be careful
Yeah, for
what you
sure.
say.
For
So,
sure. Yeah.
all right. All right, well,
Um,
everybody out there, you've heard it here. You heard about tips, why you should claim them, the pros and cons, And so tell us how we can find you, what it is that you're talking about. You mentioned Tippy a little bit,
Yeah.
kind of littered throughout there, but why don't you take a moment for as we wrap it up to give people the why and the what and the how.
Oh my gosh, I'm so excited to tell you about it. So Tippy is a software that was born in a salon, and it was because we were going cashless and we needed a way to still provide the tips every night to the service professional walking out the door. So Tippy is a kiosk that you can use at the front desk. We're integrated with some POS systems as well. So you can tip, you can go to the kiosk and tip your service professional directly, instantly goes to them, and they even know your name, they know how much you left them. And then they also have like a little picture next to the percentages, that suggested percentages based off of the service. So it's just, again, bringing back that personalization. The reason why people tip you is because they loved you, they just loved that experience, and they want to be able to do it easy, professional. You know, the customer doesn't have to have an app either. So that's, it kind of takes away that awkward talk, and it's really nice to be able to use something like this. And then for the owner, it gives them all of that data. So we have a dashboard for them to pull reports. We really try to make it super easy and bring back like the ease to being able to take that data and do something with it. The service professional also has an app that they can look at their income for the day. They can filter it out for a week, month, year. They can see everything. So it's really nice to be able to track all of that.
Nice, awesome.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
how can people find you?
Yeah, awesome. Well, I'm on social media. I have I don't know.
What's your handle? Your like the best way
Well,
to reach you is through a DM or email?
yeah, I mean, you can go to meettippy.com. You can find a little link for a demo, and it goes right to me. We can talk, we can chat. We'll give you guys a free year to try the kiosk out. So no strings attached. We don't have contracts or anything like that. So whole year for free. Just try it. See if it's a good fit for you.
Nice, awesome. Well, thank you for taking the time, and this was a great opportunity to talk about tips and only tips. And I think this is great. So thank you so much.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Absolutely. Take care, and I'll talk to you later.
Thanks.